All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming to another NEARC community event. My name is Katie Grillo and I am the GIS Web Technology Specialist at the City of Cambridge, and I'm also your NEARC Board President. So we are joined today by Mark Scott and Tom Schwartzman from ESRI. They are going to be leading us through a workshop on data management and ArcGIS Online. But before we jump over to that, I just want to take a step back and acknowledge who we are and what we're all here for. So NEARC is the Northeast ARC Users Group. We are a volunteer-based nonprofit organization here in the Northeast, and we host two major conferences every year. We have the one-day spring event, which this year is going to be hosted at Westfield State University in Westfield, Massachusetts, and that will be on Monday, May 16th. So save the date for that. And then we also host a 3-day event every fall, which this year is scheduled to be at the Mount Washington Inn in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. And that is going to be from November 5th through the 8th. So if you want to put that one on your calendar too, you can plan ahead. We're really looking forward to 2022 and coming back together with all of you in person. So in addition to those two major conferences, NEARC has started hosting these virtual community events. And generally speaking, these are happening once a month, and they're really designed just to bring folks together between the two major conferences and focus on a specific topic or theme. So some of the events are workshops, like this one is today, where we're doing a deep dive into some technical content, but some of the other workshops might be more of a discussion, or we do also have an event coming up next month, which is just an informal Mappy Hour. So just a chance for us to get together informally and chat and meet with colleagues. So if you have any questions, if you're interested in getting involved in any of these events, then please feel free to get in touch with me. And you can always keep an eye on the NEARC website for updates of what's to come. So enough from me. I will kick things over now to Tom and Mark from ESRI.
All right, thanks, Katie. We're here to talk about data management in ArcGIS Online. That's sort of a broad topic, and we're going to give you a quick view of the agenda that we put together for today. I can figure out how to use my slide thingamajigger. Go to the next slide. So this is what we're going to try to cover, sort of broad topics about how to organize, or tools or ways to organize data, tools for helping you explore and administer data or items in your organization, ways to put some control around what people can do and data, etc. And then, all those three are we're going to look at tools that you have access to easily as part of ArcGIS Online, etc. And then we'll take a look or briefly mention a couple third-party tools that you might be interested in with respect to administering, cleaning up, backing up your org. So that's the goal for today. I think we have a poll we'd like to throw out there, and this poll, Katie, if you don't mind kicking that off, is really about your role in your ArcGIS Online organization. So if you could pick from the list that hopefully popped up in front of you about whether you're the primary administrator or you're a part-time administrator, meaning you share that responsibility with someone else, or whether you're just a user has been given some specific privileges, or maybe you're just a user or a viewer, or maybe you don't even know. But if you can pick one and submit that, that would be great. And we'll give that just a minute for people to answer. And Katie, whenever you think there's a predominance of answers there are 82 people on, which is amazing. We'll take a look at those results, because I think it's interesting to know sort of who's here. And do you need to share something, or can you pop that, Katie, up in front of all of us?
Yeah, I was just giving folks, I can see the little tracker of who's submitted. Okay. So I was just going to give folks another few seconds. So
sure, for sure.
All right, I'll close the poll now. It looks like we got 91% of the participants shared their details. So can you see that now?
Yes, I can for sure. And
Yeah.
I don't know if it's being shared. No, it's not. But it looks like 45% are the primary administrator and that 28% are a joint or secondary administrator. So right there, that's 73%. Of 11% are users with some admin privileges. 12% of you are, I won't say just users, but just users. No one's a viewer, and I, among others, the other 4% don't know. That's great. That's good. So, you are probably most interested in maybe that second section or second and third section of this thing, but we're going to go through some organization tools as well to make sure you're aware of them. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to turn it over to Mark, who's going to spend some time talking about that organizing section.
Okay, did I do that right?
Yep.
Okay, beautiful. Sometimes I'm never sure. One of my screens might pop up and it's the wrong one. Okay, so thanks, Tom. So we got this broken up into sections. We're going to sort of bounce back and forth and talking about managing content in ArcGIS Online, some of the different tools and techniques that you've got available, because there are quite a few. And also some of the other things like how privileges for users and what users can and can't do can affect where data is stored and how it gets managed. So since we never know what the audience is like, we'll sort of maybe start at the basics and build up. So everything that you store in ArcGIS is an item, and all your items end up in your contents folder. And you can see all the items that you own, but if you're an administrator, you can also see items that other people own. So that's another thing to take into account. So the primary way to organize content for you personally that you've created are in folders. So the folder list over here on the left is sort of listing all your content. So there's this button up here for all my content. That's just everything. Of course, you can sort that however you like. I think the default sort is by the date modified. Sometimes I prefer to see it by title, just alphabetically. But that's everything. So then, similar to like what you have in Windows Explorer, you've got a root level. So at this something that's not in a folder just goes into your default location, so your home area. So it's, this mark.scott.citygis. That's just content that I haven't put into a folder. I try to organize this stuff reasonably well. Sometimes I fail, but there you have it. So you've got folders in here. Some folders will get created by solutions. Some folders will automatically be created by, say, Workforce or for Survey 123. So like there's a Survey 123 folder created for each survey, and that's going to contain like the layers that it uses. And so all your folders over here are managed by you. You can add new folders, you can rename them, you can delete them. Be careful when you delete a folder, of course, because it deletes all the contents. But if it's content that's shared out into a group or something, it's going to give you warnings and all that stuff. There's been a lot of requests for better folder management, like people want to have subfolders. So kind of like what you would have in Windows or any device where you could have like, this ArcGIS urban folder, and then maybe like under the urban folder, I could have Boston and San Francisco and Naperville. And so they're just separate folders for those underneath it. So I think that's something that they're considering, but right now that's just, the sort of like the dumping ground and location for data. Where it can get a little confusing is when you start combining the idea of I've got data here in folders, but then I also have data in groups. Okay, so a group is a great way to manage content, but a group doesn't just contain content, it contains people as well. So you've got a group that's going to have content in it, but then you're also going to have a group that may have individuals associated with it. And that becomes really important when you start talking about the different things that you can do with groups. We've talked about this in the past. From a data perspective on managing data, you've got to be careful with groups that you've given access to someone to that they can edit, because that is a characteristic of a group where you can have what's called a shared edit group. And we've talked about this where Tom and I could be members of the org, and I make it a shared edit group so he can edit the content and I can edit the content. So that's obviously something to take into account. So you're really going to want to sort of be aware of that. In past NEARCs, and I think in a brown bag, we talked about collaborations. So collaborations are other ways that content and data can be managed. But this has the capability of doing it across organizations. So Tom can be in his org and I can be in mine, but I can create a group that allows Tom to create content in this group that's hosted on my org. So here's another data management, it's not a red flag, it's just something to be aware of, is I make a shared edit group and I say to Tom, hey, I'm gonna invite you into this group, and that's gonna allow you to edit and change content within it. So where does the data live is going to affect who gets charged credits. So that's, again, that's sort of like a thing that you got to think about when you're managing that data is, who owns it and where are the credits being charged. So I know that people are sensitive to that. So now I've got this mishmash of data and items. Some of it's in groups, some of it isn't. How can I manage some of this? This can sort of get a little wild. So the primary way that we've done this is through tagging. So if you've got data here that's stored, say, in one of these folders, the idea here is that all your data should be tagged. And a tag is just a way of associating a text string with it, so you can do some really quick searching. Okay, so like if I had, say, for example, this Buffalo clean sweep web map, what I would hope is that I had created some sort of tags on here. Okay, so I haven't really done much here. That's so bad on me. So maybe since this is for the Buffalo Forestry Project, so I would put like Buffalo and then maybe like forestry. So that way those tags are all saved in there. And then the tags can be used later on when I'm just looking at the content in general in the org, when I'm searching for content. So I can do searches for content, based on the tag. Okay, so you can say like tags, colon, and then like forestry. And then I can go and search for that data, by the tag. Okay, so that's a really powerful way to do that. Tags are something that it's like metadata. It's sort of like up to you to be diligent about tagging the content and tagging it in some organized way. There's been a lot of comments about, geez, ArcGIS Online, I got all these tagging is great, but how do I know what I've done here? I mean, I have all these tags, and yet I don't really know. I need like a list of the tags and to be able to like go and look at that. So there's a tool that the Applications Prototype Lab has built, and I don't know if any of you have used this, but I'm going to log in here. I was logged in, logged me out, I guess, because I was sitting around doing nothing. And so this is this cool tool. We're going to send you a link to this to be able to go in here and look and see things like, what tags do I have, for each one of these items. Okay, so like the city of Boston, I might have some tags in there. In this case, I don't have any. That's probably not good. So like that Buffalo one for forestry, you can see that I've got these tags in here. It's going to show me, it's like, oh, so you've got one piece of content that's associated with that tag. I come down here to this Biddeford streetlight inspections, and it shows me I've got a tag for location tracking that I put in there. I wanted to like tag all the content that had anything to do with location tracking. And then a more generic one down here for City of Buffalo, because we were like working on these projects. So there's one for trees and then one for generic for Buffalo. And then I have this habit sometimes of like tagging content with my initials, just to say, here's a piece of content that I've been working on. I'm just going to try to sort of like, put all those in here. So this is kind of a cool tool. I mean, this tool does a lot of other things too, but it sort of is a great way for me to like to go in and see, what tags are being used in like I like the interface is a little clearer, a little cleaner. This tool is still being maintained to my knowledge. The application prototype lab spins out a lot of stuff like this. And so as far as like where it's going and like, is this going to be maintained in the long term? Don't really know. But I'm hoping that some of this functionality might be rolled into the core. So we can see that.
I think I have to say it's considered an unsupported tool.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes. Thank you, Tom. It
Yeah.
is definitely unsupported.
It does let you search and replace tags and add tags to things that you search on. And
yep, it's true. So you can go in here and do searching in here for tags, and then like Tom said, you can like you can remove the tag, you can replace it. There's a lot of stuff you can do here. So caveat emptor. Is one of those things that you might want to do. Another tool or capability, I should say, that we have as far as content goes is categories. So the categories is another thing that I find is not leveraged a lot, but I actually found it a great way to organize content. So you can see over here on the left, I've got these categories for like public works, land records, public safety, planning, economic development, parks and rec. So I've done this by industry within a local government. And there's a lot of different ways that you can go in here and set these. And the categories can be set either at an organizational level or group level. So that's pretty cool. So if I go to settings here for my org and I come down here to items, it's kind of it's like semi-buried in here. So you can see, show me the current set of categories used by the organization. So you can see that I've created categories for public works, and then under public works, I have subcategories for sewer, water, and drain. Then I've got a category for land records. I've got police and fire under public safety. So this is a kind of a nice way to organize the data. And then what you can do is you can go to the content and say, any content that you have in here. This is kind of slow. I'm not quite sure. It's kind of pokey today. So I'll come down here to say City of Biddeford. And I can see, say, for example, like here's my street lights. And if I wanted to, I could go in here and like assign categories to the content. Okay, so another thing that you can do before I drift off too far here is that you can also have categories that are specific to a group. Okay, so I could go in here and say, hey, what do I got here for these groups? I'll come down here to the City of Biddeford again. And look at all the content. Say, show me all the content. And then I can look at each one of these and I could say, what's this one? What are its categories? So categorize that. And this field inspection map, since it's sensitive to hydrants and streetlights, but it's not doing anything with parcels or buildings, I've categorized that into these multiple categories. Okay, so you can see that, and I could do bulk work in here. I could say like, let's go in here in this Biddeford contours. I'm going to go ahead and say categorize that, and then let's see, I don't have one, so I might want to go ahead and create a new one. Okay, unfortunately, you can't do that in this screen. That's another user enhancement request that I saw. So you have to go and create a new category if you wanted to do that. So why do I want to categorize the data? Well, it's because what I can do is I can go back into the content, say for that particular group. And what I can do is I can look at the content and filter by category very easily. Okay, so if I look at, sort of back through one too many screens there. So here's all my categories. So where's all my uncategorized data? So this is Biddeford contours and then BM parcels. Okay, I like to look at that one and say, well, that's, you know, that actually should be categorized under parcels. So there's one that I missed. So go ahead and save that. And it just updates the categories. Okay, so then they can see buildings, hydrants. It's just a way for me to filter that out. It's a really great way to do that and to do it really quickly. Another way to do that is by looking, and before I go too far, the help has a great description on here about content categories and also how we support category standards. So we've sort of created these sets of categories that, you know, we just think is a good start for categorizing content. But there's also content in here for configuring with ISO or Inspire standardized content categories. So we support those as well. And then the other thing you can do is you can look at the categories of an app. So while I don't have time to go ahead to build this, this is just like it's a web app. I'm sorry, an instant app that I've created for this particular group. And if you go ahead and take a look at the instant apps, you'll see that what this does is it pulls all the content for a specific group, and then it automatically organizes it by content category, and then gives you just a real quick and easy way to go ahead and search and filter by either the tags. So that shows me all the tags that are being used for all the content in this particular group, and then all the categories as well. So like there's my 6 streetlights items from this particular group that have been categorized as such. So this category gallery is just, it's kind of like a cool, quick way to be able to go in here and just browse all the content, filtering it out by category. And you know, you can control this and edit it. You could like say, I'm not going to let in this app, I'm not going to filter it by item type or tags. I'm just strictly going to stick with categories. And if you want to, you can like change that as time goes by. I mean, so you can see here's all the tags in here, and I could start filtering this down even more. Okay, so those are all different ways that you can sort of organize and manage the content. I'm going to pass it over here to Tom, and Tom's going to talk about exploring and some more administrative type topics.
Tom, you might be on mute.
That is an excellent point. This is my, thank you, Katie. This is my org, and we're going to explore some of the tools around the administrator side. And these are tools, if you click on, you've probably seen them. If you go to organization, only admins get all these choices. A user won't see like licenses, status, settings, etc. And you can control who sees members, but we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the status. Well, first the overview, you can see pretty much your credit usage through the last month, the total number of members, et cetera, et cetera. But let's jump to status because I want to dig through this a little bit. There's a lot you can do here in this dashboard and with these reports. So the first thing is you can select a date range it's going to report on. So for instance, I could say the last 30 days, 60 days. I could type in custom dates, whatever I want to do. We'll just do that. Last 60 days, and you get this. We're in this credits section here, so you can see how credit was used. You can see days when people did analysis or analytics. The storage is pretty even because I don't add or delete much from this org, but it could go up and down. And then, of course, you see it broken out by the different things: storage, analytics, etc. And let's start with, we could start with analytics. You may not know this, but you can click on either the pie slice or the legend, and it breaks it down even further. And here we see the various breakdown of the analytics that were done, geocoding, geoenrichment, feature reports, etc. And then if you want, you could even break it down further, geocoding, and we can see that that's me. I am the culprit. I'm pretty much the only one who uses this org. So you're going to see my name or my user ID a lot, but you can break that down pretty easily. And if we go back, let's go back into storage for a minute. And again, you see the different types of storage. And you probably know, you hopefully know that when you store things in the cloud, there's a cost to do that, a credit cost. And if you're storing files, and those files could be PDFs, they could be attachments to features, they could be tiles from, tile creation, or even vector tiles. Those are broken out a little bit, but we'll just look at features, which would be points, lines, polygons. It's the big one here, and it has a higher cost in credits because it's using a database than just dumb files like images or whatever. So if I click on that, I can see how that's broken down into attachments and actual features. And if I click on this, I can see sort of the use, but this is really where it gets interesting. And I can click and see what the features are that are really sucking down based on their size. And I could even download this into a CSV that I could bring into Excel. So this is a 2-month report. I could see that, Andrew's got this thing, 278 megabytes, and it's, uses, it's big, so it's going to use some credits. So I can get a sense of how my storage is being used or how analytics are being used, etc. We can go through these other tabs here. There's a content tab, which just gives a summary of what's happened in the last 60 days in terms of content, apps, similarly members. This is a member report. So for this 2-month period, actually it switched to a different period. When I switch tabs, I think it switched to a different period. So I might have to come back here. I created 85 things. I use this much credit. This is how my credits were spent, and on about a specific user. And then you can get a group report as well. The credit report is probably, or maybe the most interesting thing to people, but let's actually switch from this dashboard, which is sort of this interactive way to look at things, to this report. Now, there are basically 4 types of reports that are available to you, pre-built reports here. So if I said create report, you can see these 4 different types. There's an activity report, and that shows basically any kind of activity in the org. So when someone logs in, when someone creates something, when someone deletes something, when someone does other things, and we'll take a look at these reports. There's a credit report, looking at credit usage, so it shows by user how much geocoding you did, how much all those different things of that use up credit. A list of items and a list of members. And if I were to pick one of these, just to show you, you get to pick the duration and the time frame for that. I already have built one with this name. Not a great name, but just to show you. And then the other thing is that you can schedule these reports. So you can say, I want this to run weekly or monthly, and it will build these reports automatically for you, and you can come and look at them. So I'm not going to build, I've already done it. They don't take very long to run, at least not in my org. And so you can see I've got one here, and I can download it. They're just CSV files, and they're stored as items in your org. So if I were to, that's the download button. If you want to see the details, you can see it's just an item. And then just like any other item, and I can download it. I've already downloaded it, but I'll download it again. And just to show you what it looks like, just open it in Excel. And if we look at it, we can make this a little prettier. In fact, I've already made it prettier, so I'm going to switch to another Excel file. So this is the items in an org. So let's let's look at it here. I've not changed it much here. The only thing I've done is made it a little prettier by making it a table, but you can see every item in your org. Remember, you're an administrator, so you have privileges to see every item, and you can see who owns it. You can see its size. These are in bytes. Now, these columns I added myself, and I did a calculation that is basically the size divided into, this turns it into gigabytes for files. And I think I did the same thing here, but I turned it into megabytes because the cost, the way the cost is, the calculation's easier in megabytes for that. Files have a storage cost of 1.2 credits per gigabyte per month, right? So that's a lot. I mean, that's not a lot of credits, it's a lot of space, right? And you can see, like, even this file, which is 54 megabytes, uses almost nothing, right, in terms of credit costs, because this report's for a month, not 2 months. And then feature cost is a little bit different. It's a higher cost, again, because we use a database, and it's basically 2.4 credits per 10 megabytes, and that's what you're seeing here. So you can quickly, sort by size or cost, etc., and get a sense of it. This, this has a lot of rows in it because it's got all the items in my org, right? So I've got 2,500 items here. I think I made a pivot table just to show you that you can make pivot tables. This is Excel's thing. Here I've done it by type and how many of that type, how big those different types are, and how much credits they're using. So really, you can use all these things to just get a sense of what's going on in your org. That's items. Let's switch over to activity. This is an activity report that shows basically everything. Now, this guy, A. Omen, Andy, has a process that runs like every 5 minutes. So he's got a lot of logins. It's a geo event thing that's doing something. But here's something that's an update. I was using Business Analyst. It was doing an update. There's logins, there's deletions, there's all kinds of stuff here. So if you want to know where that layer went, who deleted it, you can actually run this report and see who deleted it. Here's that member report. It's a list of members, when they logged in, whether they have ESRI access, how many items they own, et cetera, et cetera. And the last one is credit usage. This is not storage so much, but shows us other ways of credit burn, including geocoding and routing and things like that. And you can see there's like a geo enrichment. This is for a different time period where I wasn't doing geocoding. Anyway, these reports are available to you, and they are schedulable, if that's a word. Okay, so that's reports. I want to go over and talk about scripts. Now, we have a couple Python libraries, and specifically the ArcGIS, get the words right, ArcGIS Python, what's it called, Mark? ArcGIS API for Python or something. It's got a word like that, but basically it's a Python library that lets you access and do things in either your portal, enterprise portal, or ArcGIS Online environment. And you can run that in a Python script, or you can run it in a Jupyter Notebook. And hopefully, or maybe that Jupyter Notebooks, or ArcGIS Notebooks as we now call them, are available from within ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to click on this Notebook tab, and I just want to point out that there are a couple different levels of notebook. This is about what engine they use underneath. There's a standard engine, which is perfect for the kinds of things we're talking about, has no cost whatsoever. And then some other ones that bring in other functionality that have a higher credit use cost, but this is 0 credit use cost. So I'm not going to start a new notebook and write Python code. I'm going to jump to this ESRI sample notebooks and just point out a few things, or a few samples that we can talk about and look at. Here's something that talks, I'll give a quick preview to it, but it basically talks about how to deploy automatic notifications. It doesn't say when to deploy it, but it's sort of an example of how you might build something that talks to email or talks to text messages, or talks to Zapier, which allows you to put like a Twitter feed up, or other, or IFTTT, whatever, Slack, etc. So that's like a nice notebook. Now, again, if you're looking at notebooks, it means you have a little bit of programming knowledge, Python programming knowledge. But let's look at other ones. Like, let's look at this manage inactive users. So instead of previewing it, I have a version that I actually edited to work. So let's look at it. There's a lot of Python code in here, but don't be overwhelmed by it, because a lot of it is sort of helper functions, like a function to send an email and a function to convert a date or something like that. So the whole goal of this particular script is to basically look through your users and to flag ones that haven't logged in some period, or haven't done anything in some period. And you know, there's, like I said, there's lots of code here. Here's a bit about, this bit of code is about sending emails, you know, and then here's like where you set when to notify a user, say, hey, you haven't logged in 60 days. I'm gonna delete your account or disable your account in 30 days or whatever. There's some tools around date time, and there's some other functionality, but the gist of this tool, when you get right down to it, is it goes and gets a list of users for you, and it looks at them and decides whether they should be notified that they haven't logged in 60 days, or whether they should be disabled because they haven't logged in 90 days. And so you see a couple of the results there, and it could send out emails. I don't have this set up to send out emails, but that's what all this code is doing. Don't be overwhelmed. It's not that bad. The other thing, though, to notice about, or to know about this, is that this code you can set to run on a schedule. So you can have this code, this report, which sends out emails, run every week, every 14 days, whatever. You can schedule it, and that's here where you create a task, and you set a schedule for it, right? Every, not minutes, but every week on Monday, blah, blah, blah. So there are lots of examples, both from ESRI and elsewhere, about administrative scripts that you might want to run as part of a notebook and schedule. And just be aware that you have those tools for you. And if you're a Python person, of course, you can write your own script. Earlier at some point, wrote a script that would toggle visibility of where is it? Of field map and collector thing, web maps. By default, when you create a web map, if it's available to your org, anyone who fires up collector or field maps is going to see that web map. And you may not want that. So this was doing some searching and changing and all that kind of thing. So very powerful, having that ability to write a script or use a script that will do administrative tasks for you. I think also there was another sample real quickly that was like managing and allocating credits, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes from the user interface perspective. But if we just look at this, it basically gets a set of users, and then it uses the Python API to set a credit limit for someone. So here it is, right? This is sort of the key line. You got a user, you set a credit limit, or disable a credit limit, or whatever. So lots of tools around reports. Okay, so I think I'm going to stop there and flip it back over to Mark, who's going to talk about controlling credits a little bit.
Okay, thanks, Tom. So let's see, make sure I don't run over my time too much here. So credit limiting is a powerful thing the administrator can do if they want to have a little tighter control over how things are consumed. And there's some other ways to do this too that I'm going to talk about. I mentioned in collaborations how with a collaboration, you're sort of like saying, I'm going to let you create stuff in my org, even though you're in a different org. So, that's something to be aware of as far as credit consumption goes. But as far as setting a credit limit on users in your org goes, it's pretty easy to do. So the administrator would go up here to this organization tab, and they load that up and they go to the settings. And if you come down here to the credits button, it's going to say, do you want to enable the credit budgeting tools? And if you click on that, it's going to give you this little warning page. It's going to say, hey, if you enable the credit budgeting tools, it's going to add a couple of things into the interface. So there's going to be a column that's going to say, how many credits do you have remaining? And then be able to go in for each individual member and allow or disallow credit allocation for each one. So then obviously, if they hit their limit, they're going to have to come back to you, the administrator, and go, hey, how come I can't do anything in ArcGIS Online anymore? And you might come back and go, hey, it's because you tried to geocode the yellow pages and you chewed up about 1,000 credits in about 2 seconds. So that's kind of the way you do that. So I'm going to say no to this one and show you what it looks like in a different org that has it enabled. So now if I go to the organization settings and I click on credits, you can see that I've enabled the credit budgeting tools and I'm showing each member's available credits on their settings page. So now if I come back over here to the members tab, now you can see in this particular screen, as opposed to in this screen, where I don't see anything about credits, over here, I do. I see I've got credits remaining. And as the administrator, I could go in and say, well, Jerry, I'm going to go ahead and manage his credits. And right now it's set to none. But with Jerry, we never know what he's going to do. So we're going to set him with a limit of like 250 credits. Okay. Now note this little thing here. It says budgeting does not apply to organizational credits used for storage of files, feature layers, and tiles for operational activities, premium content access through a configured resource proxy. So there's other ways that you have to control things like that. But I'm going to go ahead and save that one here. So now you can see Jerry is set up with 250 of 250. Now he hasn't consumed any in this particular org. In fact, I think probably I'm the only one that has. It's my user. But I would see that in here as to like, how many credits they have remaining based on the number that I've allocated to them. So that's one way to control that. And that's pretty good. Could be kind of hairy, I guess, like if you've got 400 members. That's sort of part of your job as the administrator is to, get a better, have a grip on that. So there's been some comments and suggestions about things that can be done in the interface, maybe to have, have this a little easier to use and a little easier to control, maybe like little drop down boxes here instead of like, having to go to another page to open that up. So things like that. So credit limits is an important way to be able to control that. You can think of another way to do this too, and that is I'm going to go back here to my organizational settings and talk about roles. Okay, so member roles is sort of a way that you can create these custom or not so custom roles that are going to say, what can I and can I do? So maybe Jerry is sort of prone to using geocoding too much or geo-enrichment or some of this other stuff. So, maybe what I'll do here is I'm going to say, I'm going to create a new role and I'm going to call it like publisher limited or something like that. And I could say like, we're going to have the role privilege is going to be in here. And we're going to say, yeah, I want him to be able to go ahead and manage all this content. But one thing I don't want him to be able to do is I'm going to let them, I don't want him to be doing any geocoding or any geo enrichment. So I'm going to leave those off, but I do want him to be able to access demographics and notebooks, because he's starting to get into notebooks. He's writing some code to do some management of things like tags and whatnot. And maybe we'll even let him do reporting, but I'm going to leave geocoding off. And I'm going to leave network analysis, spatial analysis, and geo-enrichment. These are all things that can consume credits. And so we're going to leave all that off. And I'm going to give a little, we're going to call this the Jerry specific role. Poor Jerry doesn't know he's getting slagged here on this webcast. Okay, so get this publisher limited now. So that particular user can't do any more geocoding or geo-enrichment. And then I can go back here to my members and I can decide like what kind of role I want to give him. So I'm going to say he's now going to be publisher limited. Okay, so this is a way for me to be able to control credit consumption, which is sort of indirectly affecting data. If I wanted to, to say that, I didn't want it, I'm going to let him create new feature layers, but we're going to control that with credit limits. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to control exactly what he can do by setting a specific role there. You can do a little bit of this with groups too, but I think we've sort of talked about how groups are leveraged already for this. There's one other tool I wanted to show, and that is it doesn't really fall into this category per se, I guess, but some of you may have used this tool called the ArcGIS Online Assistant, and this tool still exists. So it's ageoassist.esri.com, and you can just go ahead and log into whatever org you want to use. And so this is the interface that we had before, and it was okay. And I actually did use this quite a bit in the past. Especially for looking at the JSON of an item. Okay, so like if I wanted to go in here and like look at the JSON for a specific item, because like things, I don't know if you ever messed around with like a dashboard when you like change the data source, it does it by name. So you could go in here and like find the ID and then do like a copy paste and change the ID and have it point to like a different data source that had all the same field names, everything was exactly the same, but I just need to change that ID. So that's kind of a cool way to do that. Very useful. But there's a newer one that has more of a, I don't know how to say this, like an ArcGIS Online like look and feel to it. So this is kind of nice. I kind of like this. So this is the new one that I've logged into. These are developer tools. They're actively developed by professional services, but they're not supported per se. Okay, so again, it's caveat emptor. Be careful here, but I use this tool a lot, and it's a very useful tool for doing things like copying content around. So say I went over here to City Syracuse, and I've got this neighborhoods map, and I'm logged in here to my city org, my city GIS org, and I say, hey, what I'd like to do is I'd like to copy this item, and I'm going to copy this over here to this other org that I'm a member in. So this is my county government org. So I'm going to go ahead and select that, and I'm going to say, this is an admin account. That's fine. I'm going to use that user, and then I'm going to copy it into my County of Onondaga folder. So select that. So what that's going to do is it's going to make an in-place copy of this item from one org to another. So I'm a member of these two orgs, and it's a great way for me to like shift and copy content around. So I find this pretty useful, quite frankly. And like anything else, be careful, because you're copying this content around. But because I have an account in both of these, and I'm an administrator in both, it's pretty easy for me to do this. There's limitations, like Tom and I have talked about this in the past, like you can't copy things like story maps. That doesn't work because you've got all this other you know, these other like the images and whatnot that are associated with the story map. So that I think, you know, I've discussed this with some of the PS guys about like, you know, what would it take to like have like a story map copying tool, and I think they're considering things like that. But so, you know, just let it be known that for simple stuff like maps and feature layers, this is a pretty easy tool to use, and you know, a pretty good way to be able to go in and do these things. And also it's the same idea here. You can use this to go in and like crack open the JSON and look at that. So you can say, you know, view the item JSON and go in and make edits and changes to that. So anyway, to pull that up, we've got a link to that in the slide deck that we're providing. So Tom's got that in there, and we're going to press that up and send that off to Katie so she can share that with all of you. Okay, so I'm going to pass it back over to Tom now.
Okay, I'm going to just start us off talking about third-party tools, and then Mark will finish up with he and I together will do this. So let me share again. All right, so there are a bunch of at least a few companies that have made some nice tools for use with ArcGIS Online or Enterprise Portal. One of which is GeoJob, and I'm going to start by showing you their admin tools for ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. I'll talk about in a minute where to find it, and they actually, for this one, they have two versions, a free and a not free version. I've installed or gotten access to the free version, but if you want the full-on version, it has a yearly cost. But it's well worth it. It wraps a bunch of things that we've talked about, functionality, a bunch of things we talked about today into one useful, helpful place, easy to use. So for instance, if you're interested in looking at item tools, you can see I just clicked on item tools, all of the tools that are available to you with respect to items. And you can do it in bulk, whatever these tools are, like update tags or something, you can do it in bulk, add tags, remove tags. These ones in blue are part of the free version, and the ones in gray are in the pro version. So I just wanted to, you know, maybe show you one or two things. For instance, if I wanted to add tags to items, first I want to find the items I want to add tags to. So by default, it's me. So you see this filter of owner is me. I could remove that. But I could also add other things like, I don't really know what would be good here. I don't have that many things in the category, but you see my list of categories. I don't even know if I'm using any of these, so this may be dangerous and not find any. If I apply that, you'll probably get none. So let me remove that. Whatever, I can do a search here. I could do for tags. Tag is test. Got a lot of test stuff. So it's going to filter down, and it's got 98 things. And then I would go next, and I got to select what I want, and then say next. And then I can add tags, you know, to those items, etc. That's just one example. I'm not going to do it, but there's tools around items. Oops. What did I get here? Back, please. Admin tools. Oops. There we go. There's tools around groups, around users, for browsing, etc. This is a great tool, and especially because they have a free version, there's almost no reason not to get yourself access to the free version. And I'll show you where to do that in a minute via the marketplace. While I'm here, though, I want to show you also another one of their GeoJob's tools called CleanMyOrg. I don't have access to this at all. It's a paid only version, but you can see the kinds of things it can do. Check for inactive users. We've already seen scripts that do that and whatnot, but here it is in a nice user interface. Look for services that aren't used by any web map. Look for web maps that aren't used by any application. Look for web maps that have bad links to data that doesn't exist, and on and on and on. So this is really from an administrative perspective, a way to be able to really keep an eye on what's going on in your org and keep it cleaner, hence the name Clean My Org. So just be aware of that. We'll talk about Mark will talk about one more GeoJob tool, but before I switch over to Mark, I wanted just to show you that if you go to the marketplace, which is marketplace.arcgis.com, and you search for any of these tools, here I'm just searching ArcGIS Online and apps. You can see a bunch of apps, but we'll talk about Backup My Org in a minute. There are a couple of backup utilities that Mark will talk about briefly, but those admin tools are here. Here's the free version, and here's the pro version. And if you click on the free version, you can get a bad request there. I don't know what's going on there, but I'm now out of luck here. If you click on that, you can actually add it to your org, and then it becomes, as you saw in my thing, part of my like app picker here, where I can pick it. Okay, so I encourage you to take a look at that tool. Also, if Clean Up My Org is interesting to you, you should take a look at that. And then Mark, I think, is going to talk about a few tools around backup, and then we'll sort of wrap it up. So I'm going to stop sharing and let Mark finish up.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Indeed, here on the marketplace, there's a host of apps and services that you can find, as Tom pointed out. So like if you go to the product section, and if you were to do a search, just say, for example, backup, you see all these in here. So for example, this is something that has been asked a lot about, like, is there a way for me to, like, create like a backup of the stuff in my org? Because otherwise, what's the methodology under which you would do that if we want to, like, step back like a week or something. And while we don't have, ESRI doesn't have anything in place, we've got 3 partners that do. So there's this Backup My Org by GeoJob. I've seen a video of this. It's pretty interesting and quite powerful, and it allows you to back the whole thing up completely. I would encourage you to go to the GeoJob website to take a look at this. They don't have a trial of this. I guess it kind of sort of, they have a trial of some of their other tools, but they already had like a cloning piece where you could like clone from like one org to another, which is interesting. But like this whole backup and restore thing that can go on a local hard drive or even into a cloud storage. I think they're supporting Amazon, but I'm not 100% sure. So this is pretty interesting. Like I said, they did a presentation to our office, and I watched that, and it was pretty cool. I'm not quite sure if there's a video or not, but I would encourage you, if you're interested in that, to contact them. But they're not the only one. We've got some other options. For example, this backup utility from Civic Lens. So this is a different one. And there is a trial. You can get a 21-day free trial on this one. And this is a desktop application. So it's a desktop application that works with either ArcGIS Online or Portal. And it would take like your maps, your apps, your survey forms, other item inventory and dependencies like pictures and whatnot, static data and files, and it lets you back all that stuff up, and it backs it up locally, and you can schedule it or do on-demand backup. So that one's pretty neat. I haven't loaded this or anything. They do have a trial. I should probably give it a shot, but we were actually hoping to get Civic Lens to like do a presentation to the whole office, and I think they might be doing something for ESRI in general. So I might have some more information about this later.
Mark.
Yes.
Mark, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just noticed that we're at time, so I think some folks have started to drop off the call. So if you're willing to, Mark, we can stay on for another couple of minutes, but just really.
Yep, no
I
problem.
do just really quickly while we still have everyone on the call. I just wanted to
Yeah,
say a quick thank you to both of you and to remind folks that we will be sending a follow-up email after this event with a whole link to, with a list of different links to resources. And we'll also include a link to the recording for this. And so that will all come to an email to all of you. And if you want to, you can also check out our community events website on the NEARC website in order to see some details from past events and the details from this event. So
okay,
I don't
cool.
know if
No, thank you, Katie. Thanks for. I was looking at the wrong. I had a stopwatch going, and I wasn't looking at the clock. So
no worries.
but yeah, I just want this other one by North Point, which is an ESRI partner. They have a backup manager too, and you can find that on the marketplace as well. And so if you're interested in any of those sort of backup tools, I would encourage you to either find it through the marketplace or go to their websites and check them out. So I will stop sharing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, did you or Tom have any other last final takeaways for folks?
No, I mean, I hope that we showed you some things that were helpful and useful. You know, there's only so much we can show in an hour, but hopefully help you keep your org on track a little bit. Nothing specific though.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, there's, like you said, it's hard to cover everything in an hour. And the fact that I had to stop you there just shows that we could have kept going here with more content. But that is to say, for all of you folks that are on the call today, this is something that we will continue doing. So our goal is to host an event with our friends at ESRI every couple of months. So stay tuned for more events like this. And if you have a topic that you want to learn more about or a topic that you'd like to see a deep dive into, then please reach out and let us know, and we'll see if we can make that happen. All right, so thanks again so much to Mark and Tom, and thank you all so much for coming.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.